Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sales 101, the B2B sales classroom. We are your co-hosts, BJ Allen and
Donald Sikele.
we are so excited to talk today about something that I'm very passionate about because I'm a sales professor, and the episode today is one of my old sales students who is absolutely crushing it at Gong. He got promoted really, really fast from a BDR to an account executive, and he's going to talk about his perspective, the student perspective of sales education. Donald, what are you looking forward to?
Gong is an amazing organization. So I want to know, what is Joseph doing to be successful? I want to know what did he take from college that's helping him right now? And if we set him up well, is there anything that he needed that we didn't provide for him? And I think from a professor standpoint, that would be great. And especially for you, I think it's, seeing one of your quote unquote protege, how this guy was able to come into your class, was able to be a part of the things that you have. And now he's in a career. I mean, it's probably just like rewarding to see that. So
Totally. And I'll intro a little bit when we meet with him. But Joseph was one of our presidents for our sales club here. He's one of my top students. So we're excited to hear what he says. So let's dive in.
let's do it.
Welcome to Sales 101, the B2B sales classroom. We're so excited to have Joseph with us. Joseph, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Now, this is especially meaningful to me because Joseph is one of my very first students I taught at BYU. And then he became the president of our sales society, which is like our sales club. And now he's just killing it in life. So I take all the credit for everything good that he says, and everything bad is probably Donald's fault.
He listened to my podcast, and that's why you got those bad experiences. So.
Yeah. No, I probably agree with that.
Well, I want us to dive in. Joseph, tell us, I don't think people get it. Professors may not know when we talked about this in the intro. You work at Gong. When I think of software companies for B2B sales professionals in the sales world, I can't think of anyone bigger besides Salesforce. That's a pretty darn big company. Talk to us about what you do at Gong and your role and how long you've been there, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so I'm an account executive. I've been there almost 2 years. So in a couple weeks, it'll be 2 years. Started out as a business development rep, did that for about a year, and getting close to about a year as an AE. In case that needs clarification, I manage the full cycle of deals. So I source my own deals. I manage the deal cycles. I run my own pilots. I manage my own customers because I'm in a smaller segment, so I don't get a lot of company support. So I wear a lot of hats right now. And then I close business.
What segment are you in? What do you work with right now?
We call it commercial. So if you think employees 50 to 200 employees about.
That's pretty darn cool, man. Well, that's awesome. So BJ, I'm sure you're getting some royalty checks from the education you passed on.
Yeah, I before my students leave the class, I'll sign something that's I learned at least 15% of everything I know from Professor Holland. So therefore,
that doesn't work for me anymore because all my calls are recorded. So if there's any discrepancies, we have to go back to them.
oh my goodness. Oh, I love it. So Joseph, as let's talk just a little bit about because I know you took my class, you took my advanced sales class, you took Professor Zippy's, who was a guest we had on a couple weeks ago. Just talk a little bit about how a sales education prepared you for the work you're doing now. So think about most of our audience being current professors who are teaching this. What do you want them to know about the things that go on in the classroom that helped you in your career?
Yeah, so it actually all started with Zippy's class because I was in the marketing program. Originally I wanted to be in the marketing program. And so I was going to everything marketing related because I was a, try hard. I really wanted to get in. And he spoke at one of those marketing association events. So I wiggled my way in as a sophomore to his class. And then it really just opened my eyes because, to be honest, I didn't even know that the career existed. So I think from an education standpoint, I didn't realize that it was even an option. I think from there, building on skills that I'd kind of picked up through life experiences. I was able to grow those and like just growing different ways to see the world and ways to think and be persuasive. And then adding on, your classes as well and the sales society events and other extracurricular activities, I think kind of rounded me out in terms of being prepared for a role like this.
I love it. So talk about some of the things that you remember learning. Like, was there any concepts or specific role plays, or I don't know, just anything that you remember specifically is like, well, like that was actually helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a couple. Actually, talking about Zippy's class, I hope he watches this. But the Darth Vader toothbrush uh example, he would kind of teach us in parables, and there was an example of like you can add a bunch of details to something and like make it sound more like better or whatever. Like just the details that you add into something, like you can really change the perception. And then just like the being in line for the copy machine. Like you don't have to have a reason to ask for something. You just have to pretend like you have a reason. Like, hey, I need to make copies. Can I cut in line? Kind of thing. That's a principle that I use all the time. Like sometimes I don't have any reason for the asks I make, but I pretend like I do and people say yes. And then also I think the role plays in your class, BJ, were helpful of like, I think we did some cold call role plays and just some pitching role plays, and actually getting able to practice was helpful as well.
One of the things you mentioned, and I thought it was, I mean, those are pretty cool stuff. I think we have to bring Zip back on the podcast, BJ, to talk about Zippy about that Darth Vader toothbrush. That's the whole episode all in itself. But Joseph, some of the things we touched based on before, in addition to those things that you learned in class and things you took away from, the role plays, the practice, and some of these concepts, you mentioned that you did something outside of class, which was the sales society, and you did networking. So here you are, someone that if I understand, you didn't know about sales careers prior to going into this lecture, right?
Well, I found out later that my uncle is in this career, but he's not one
Yeah.
to ever talk about work. So I didn't even know that it was a career that existed. Yeah, before these classes.
And see, I think that's where a lot of people fall into as well, where we see sales as either in the environment that you grew up in and that we are familiar with is the door to door, or we see it as used car sales, but not the professional selling role is not as it's becoming more glamorous in many instances. But I love the fact that you mentioned the how you came to be aware of it and change from marketing to a seller. The other side to that is you talked about networking and about the clubs. Can you dive deeper on why you decided to do more sales after you finished classes? And what did that do to you when you joined clubs and networking events?
So it's kind of a funny story, BJ. I'm curious if you remember this, but the first time we met was in the 6th floor of the Tanner. And I would go up there because the bathrooms are just cleaner. And you were actually using the restroom the same time I was. And so I said, hey, like, BJ, aren't you the sales professor? And you're like, wow, thanks for like introducing yourself to me. And that was kind of how I actually heard about the sales club, because you mentioned it in that conversation. So I guess like from a networking, just pure networking standpoint, I guess I was kind of already doing that. But yeah, I had the opportunity in the club to work with companies that are recruiting at BYU, helping like train students to feel comfortable so they could take on, entry level sales roles. And then a big part of it was also my entry in was the competitions. I did a few. My first one was to the University of Minnesota, and we ended up taking first place. And that was kind of like an unlock for me. It's like, oh wait, I can maybe do this. And then from then on, it was just the club put me in front of companies, put me in front of other, professors and resources, and I started to really learn and pick things up.
Most people don't do clubs. What would you tell us? So let's say a professor is listening to this and she or he is thinking about like, I want to start a club. What would you tell them to make them recognize the importance of it, even though it's a sacrifice for them?
Well, I'd say that the classes were interesting, but what ignited my passion was like getting to go out and do it. And I also enjoyed just helping other students find their place and such. So I also really enjoyed that aspect. But I think that in sales, you have to have a passion, or the days that suck are going to get too much. And don't know if I would have found that in the classroom.
I love that. So
What do you think it was about, Joseph? What do you think about it was like, or what was it about like interacting with the companies that solidified your desire to do sales? As you had, these companies come in and do trainings, or you met them at like the recruiting events. What was it about those interactions that helped solidify your passion for sales?
Yeah, those definitely help because I got to meet the kind of people that I'm working with now, or that I be working with. And I think that the leaders in this field are very focused on self-development. They're very focused on, ownership and just other ideals that resonated with me. And so, I mean, part of the career is figuring out, do I want the person's job that's like 2 or 3 places beyond me?
Yeah,
And like, I'm sure it depends on the company, but at least in our instance of the people we were interacting with, they seemed like really good people that I would want to be like.
I love that. So let's continue on this recruiting train and talk a little bit about
I like
why we want to recruit from universities with sales programs. So Gong's been a great supporter of our sales program. They've hired some of my top students. And, what would you say, Joseph, to a company that's like, why would I recruit entry-level college students whose experience in sales is very limited versus like I can just put a post out and I'll get, you know, 20 to 30 people with 1 to 2 years of SDR experience. Like, why would I recruit at a university versus just put a post on LinkedIn and know I'll get people who already have experience?
Perhaps a topic for another day, but I've learned, because I've actually hired salespeople myself in a separate capacity. But there's will and skill, and you can teach skill if someone has will, but I don't think you can give someone will. And what I mean by that is, like, if a student is, first of all, motivated enough to get a degree, and they're in an extracurricular program doing things that are outside of what is going to give them a grade, they probably have some level of grit and determination, and they want to learn. Whereas someone with skill is still a good hire, but like, you just don't know, or maybe there's less indicators that there's will there.
it's very. We used to always call it the desire, uh, but I like the idea of using the term will, like their willpower, willing to do something. This is really cool. I want to shift gears a little bit, BJ, if that's okay,
Yeah,
Joseph.
let's do it.
We have professors who are here, and they're probably gleaming a lot from this so far, and you're probably going to get a couple of them hit you up on LinkedIn. But let's think about it from the other side. Now you're in the professional world, and here we are as old geezers, former sellers. I train salespeople, BJ train. We go out, but we're not. I do day-to-day selling as well, but not as much as my team members who would be on the phone. Things evolve. What are some of the things that you wish that you had gotten in college that you're experiencing right now? And be nice, your old professor's on right now. Just
No,
kidding.
just rip me, Joseph. Just rip me. Like, we want to know what should we have taught you that we didn't?
I think it's impossible probably to teach everything that a student's going to need to know to sell well. I'm relatively new, but I'm learning some things all the time. I think the things that I wish I would have grasped, probably one being sales methodologies. So from like an AE perspective, to be fair, for outbound prospecting, super important. I do that all the time. It's not that complicated. Like, I think outbound prospecting is not really rocket science. Obviously, it takes thought, it takes intention, but the part that was hard for me to learn when I promoted to an AE was understanding that in order to build a compelling event, you need to uncover metrics. Like, things like that make sense once you know, but if no one's told you, you just don't know. And so, like, kind of thinking about how to manage deals, I think, is probably I would have liked to know. Just understanding what needs to be uncovered early in the process so that I can know who needs to, make the decision, who needs to be looped into the deal, who's truly the economic buyer in a deal, and so on and so forth. And also in building a business case. So understanding, really strong discovery, and then just kind of managing, like, hey, how can I be a consultant here and recommend, the next step? Like, what am I trying to accomplish that's going to be between me and closing the deal?
That's really interesting. When you talk about like you said earlier, controlling the deal versus not controlling the deal. Like, give us an example of when you haven't controlled the deal. Like, what are some things you didn't uncover early enough that kind of put you outside the driver's seat?
Yeah, so an example I can think of is the first month off of ramp. I was working a deal, everything was going really well, and then they said, "Oh wait, our chief operating officer needs to be part of this deal," which is like not normal for my sales cycles. But I hadn't asked, like I hadn't uncovered really their decision process prior, and she hadn't seen a demo. Like we were kind of in the final, innings of the deal, and she came in and was like, "I just don't understand why we need this." Because I had not figured out what mattered to her. I had not built value in her mind. And then the deal ended up dying in the last minute because I hadn't done my homework. And yeah.
I've been there, and I was, as you were speaking that, I felt the pain of putting so much heart and soul into something, and then all of a sudden, one person come in and kibosh it. Um, but it sounds like that's definitely, it was a lesson learned the hard way, but obviously there's more to that now. But deal flow, understanding some of the different methods. And I'm gonna pick on my professors who are out there. I love you all. Please don't get offended by this and keep listening to our podcast. A lot of you love spin selling, nothing against that. It's just that there's more to the world than spin. Uh, I think there's, even in this case, you mentioned to us before you do medic, right, Joseph? And then there's even medpic as well that's out there.
Yeah, at Gong we use Medic, and it's essentially it's a methodology, and it's not really even a methodology. I would just say it's really a discovery framework. In terms of like what are the things that we need to uncover about a deal in order to forecast it accurately and also, you know, close it.
Joseph, let's talk to those sales professors out there. Like, what do you want them to know about teaching the sales class? Like those professors who are wondering, it's like, this isn't as cool as teaching marketing analytics or marketing research or something, because not all the professors worked in sales. They have a passion for sales. Maybe it's just something they were asked to do. So what would you tell them?
I think that sales is a really important subject matter because the reality is, at least in a lot of B2B companies, most, if not all, roles require you to understand how to persuade someone to achieve an outcome. And so, whether or not someone is in sales their entire career, there's definitely career dividends that pay when a student knows how to look at a problem, understand everyone's viewpoints, and move those stakeholders from where they are to your vision. And then and also just like in reality, a lot of senior roles require that skill set as well.
Joseph
I love,
spitting bars here.
I love it, Joseph. Joseph, if there's one major piece of advice over your career so far, and your tenure, coming from a student into everything that you've experienced so far, if you could go back and tell yourself one thing when you first started learning about sales, what's that one as a career? What's that one piece of advice you would give yourself?
I think realizing that it's a marathon and not a sprint,
Mm.
and it's okay to fail and it's okay to mess up because you'll always have another opportunity. And even if it seems like failure is a big deal, like a strong skill set will always find a way to provide value. And I wouldn't even say necessarily that I had so many instances of failure, but I was definitely afraid of failure. And I don't think it's that big of a deal anymore.
Joseph, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. If folks are listening to this and they want to get in touch with you or have you guest lecture in their class or even just to pick your brain, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn, Joseph Wood, currently working at Gong. Hopefully that's enough to find me. And yeah, I'm always happy to connect on there.
Joseph, thank you so much, man.
Great to see you again.
Thank you.
All right, Donald. So I know you've been telling me that you think I'm a terrible professor, but hopefully, judging from the words we heard from Joseph, you've realized that I'm not as bad as you thought.
I take it all back now. I take it all back. Ladies and gentlemen, BJ can actually teach. Okay. Okay.
Oh man. It's been so fun to see Joseph just kill it in his career
Yeah.
and advance really quickly. And he really is, I mean, as good of a person
Yeah.
as there's out there. So it's really fun to see him have success.
You,
Um,
you know, one,
I loved him talking about some of the things he learned, some of the things that he, wish I could have done a little better in teaching him. I think the thing that I'll walk away from the most, Donald, is just him talking about his evolution of thought in going from, within like a 6-month time frame of
Mhm.
like, I don't even know what sales is and I don't think I want to do it, to winning a sales competition and deciding that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's like it just opened a door. Like what I love about it, when I first started off, I was a marketer as well because we didn't have sales. So it was like it was marketing, and then he got introduced to sales through one of our professors, Zippy here, that came through on the pod. And I feel like I feel if there's more students that understood the profession, it would be something that would be planning. I'm going to do that for my career rather than I'm just going to go to college and I'll get a business degree. But it's awesome. And the other piece too, I was really fascinated in BJ, and we talk about this on a podcast multiple times with different individuals. Those after school things, that's money. Like, I mean, when you have it takes your time to be able to put a club together, but think about it. You're giving him stuff in the class, but it's an addition. And the way I look at it, BJ, is like my son plays rec T-ball, and then now he's getting introduced into some travel stuff, and it's like rec. I was like, okay, that once a week practice is good. He's good. But then now the travel, when you're doing 2-hour practice versus 1-hour practice, and you're doing several days a week, you're like, hold on, skill level goes to another level. And I see that with those after school clubs, if students have volunteered to be a part of that, I mean, you can just see the caliber and the networking that he was able to do to get into a company like Gong. I mean, it's serious. It's not that takes time. So I just admonish you and all of the professors that's there. I would plead with you all to think about doing some kind of after school, after class curriculum, something else, club or whatnot. So anyways, you are a good professor, okay, Dr. Allen?
Well,
And
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
if you put on the
Yeah.
glasses, I'll look
Yeah.
smarter.
Comment on how great of a professor I am. If you're listening, hit me up on LinkedIn. As always, thank you so much for joining us. We want you to thrive in your career teaching the next generation of sales leaders. Hit me and Donald up on LinkedIn if you want to talk to us. And until next time,
Go sell something.